Welcome back. Today we're going to analyze a subscriber game sent to me via email, as you see in the screenshot. It says, hey, do you want to analyze another one of my games for your channel? There's the link. During the game, I thought I was doing well, making smart positional moves. I could tell I was having trouble near the end, but had no idea the evaluation would show 18 combined blunders. I still don't understand some of the blunders. Also, how can my opponent have more blunders than me and still win? Well, I may not be able to explain all of these blunders, why some, but I can answer that last question, and then we'll go through the game. The last question, let's see here. My subscriber had 5 inaccuracies, 5 mistakes, 8 blunders, and the opponent listed at the bottom has 4 inaccuracies, 3 mistakes, and 10 blunders. So how can the opponent have 10 blunders and still win when my subscriber only had 8 blunders? There's 2 reasons I can think of. One is when the blunders fell in the game, at the timing of them. As I described in a video much earlier in my channel, a few months ago, sometimes whoever blunders last loses. If I make a blunder on move 8 and then I blunder on move 12, but then my opponent is blundering on move 42 and move 46 and 51, I might have given away the advantage early in the game, and then we played even throughout, and then when they blunder at the end, then I win because they give the advantage back to me. Or vice versa. Sometimes, my opponents blunder early on and I have the advantage throughout the game, but then if I blunder at the end, I could give it away. And sometimes one blunder is enough. Sometimes one blunder hangs mate in one, or a forced mating sequence. And the opponent might have had 6 blunders early, but then as long as I hang mate with one blunder, that's all it takes. So the second thing is that not all blunders are created equal. They tend to refer to a significant change in the evaluation of who has the advantage. But sometimes it's a 3-point change or a 2-point change in the evaluation. Sometimes it's a 6-point change. So that might make the difference. If the opponent's blunders were 2-point changes, and my subscriber's blunders were 3- and 4-point changes, then by the end, that it adds up to that. Okay, let's look at the game, which is, there it is. Get rid of the screenshot. Okay. The first thing I noticed was a problem in the opening, which I am not very familiar with the Vienna opening. I do know that this is the Vienna game, but I tend to not play e4 just because I feel like there are way too many traps. So that's why I started playing d4. It seems like there are a lot fewer traps. But anyway, it proceeded normally until about here, when the opponent makes a small inaccuracy, but then my subscriber plays f4, which looks like the Vienna gambit, except in the book, it's still showing the Vienna game, Stanley variation. To get the gambit, we have to go back before that bishop move and move f4 now, offering this pawn to the opponent. If the opponent takes the pawn, they don't have to, but if they do take it, the next book move in the Vienna gambit is to push that pawn up, threatening the knight. And even though the computer evaluation bar is not showing a huge advantage for white, it's a slight advantage. And as you can see from the opening book, white tends to win a bunch of these games that get to this point. The most common move for black here is to put the knight back where it came from, and then white can continue the development. Now white has 2 pieces out. They have a pawn in the center controlling important squares. But anyway, let's get out of this book, go back. My opponent played the bishop first, and then tried to do the Vienna gambit. Sorry, my subscriber. And the problem here is that black can take the pawn, and it looks like you're taking the full center and about to win this pawn back, except black has this, directly threatening the bishop. And this pawn is super guarded. it's guarded by this pawn, it's guarded by the knight, it's guarded by the queen. So if we take it, which my subscriber did, then they can take back. And now my subscriber apparently did the math here, that if we take, we lose our knight. If we take the knight, we lose our bishop. And so they tried something different. Okay, so now they're down a pawn, right? And that check is easily blocked. Okay, so they get that pawn back over here, but now the bishop has to go somewhere because you put it down there where it can be easily chased. So now it has to decide, does it run back here and possibly get trapped, or does it go back where it came from, or does it take the knight? My subscriber went back partway to where it came from. So the reason that was a mistake, if you'll see right here, well, these are the top 3 moves. The first is to go ahead and capture the knight. Just do an even trade. You're even on material. Wouldn't be great positionally, but at least you'd be even. Another option is to say check, according to the computer. And even better is to come back here and get in front of your king with the bishop. But my subscriber just brought it back partway, which, I mean, it looks like a safe square. It's guarded by this pawn. But, okay, that was a mistake too. Because here, black just has a free pawn. And then they get a knight right in the middle of the board. Okay, so at this point, my subscriber's already lost an advantage because of the not quite knowing the opening or the order of the piece moves, which made a difference, as you saw. If you do the Vienna Gambit before getting the bishop out, then your bishop doesn't get forced to make, 3 or 4 moves, as you saw. And but here, this was a mistake, partly oh yeah, if you go here, like the computer had suggested, your queen's still guarding that pawn. But instead, you blocked your queen from guarding the pawn. But black didn't take it, perhaps not seeing it, because it was guarded earlier. So now, now the computer wants white to finish their development. This not only prepares castling, but it also guards that pawn. But instead, my opponent did the second best move, which that's okay. So we got another piece off the board. They're still even on material. The advantage is not much. Both players make some okay moves. They castle, so this knight is triple guarded. They have a trade. And it's about even here. Okay, now, right here, the opponent should have finally taken this free pawn. It's been sitting there free this whole time. Or castle. Or castle queenside is the third best move. But that's a blunder, as you can see right here. Look at that. The difference is from a 1-point advantage for black to a 1-point advantage for white, and it's called a blunder. So that's one of the opponent's blunders. This puts the king in a pretty precarious position with open diagonals coming through here. And so when you're looking at the opponent 10 blunders, down here on the, can we even get down there to show that? No. Okay. The 10 blunders, one of them was this one. So that answers that question too, is that this blunder wasn't as bad as some of the other blunders. Also, it was early in the game, so it didn't affect the outcome. But anyway, let's go through some games. So we say give an ineffectual check, because what white should have done was move here to guard this pawn. But we give an ineffectual check, which is easily blocked. But instead of blocking, black should move out of the way, because right now, this knight is guarding this pawn. The queen is guarding this pawn. The rook is guarding that pawn through the queen. So the opponent blunders again. This is the second opponent blunder. The reason that's a blunder is because now only one piece is guarding this pawn. So white can just take it. But it looks guarded, right? It's hard for a beginner, even me sometimes, to see that that's now a free pawn because of this blunder. Still, My subscriber doesn't see that. So both players continue to make mistakes here. And each time, okay, they finally saw that free pawn. Oh, and it was the best move this time. Good. Okay. I'm not going to evaluate fully every blunder and mistake for the rest of this game other than to point them out. But you can see why what I said earlier, blunders aren't created equally. These blunders that the opponent has made are at the beginning of the game, giving my subscriber some advantage, but my subscriber's blunders came later in the game when it was basically too late to regain the advantage. So I'm not sure why that's a mistake, but here white should just trade. Look at this. 4-point advantage if you just take that bishop now. If you move back, you down to a 1.8 advantage. And if you go back this way, you give black a slight advantage. Okay, so that's a huge difference. This is only a mistake. And I'm not sure why that was not counted as a blunder because of the point difference. Earlier, black got counted for a blunder for a 2-point difference. This is 2.3. But the reason it's a mistake is because it's so easily locked in. So now this bishop can't go anywhere. Not for a long time. So I see the logic here. You wanted to guard this. But you see, the other one's blundered. Okay, now we're attacking the queen. The queen moves out of the way. We threaten the queen. It moves out of the way. Now this part, it does look like a slow, careful positional game. Like my subscriber said in their email. Smart positional moves. It does look like that. Each player is making small, careful moves, getting the queen out of danger, putting the king in check. But this is, I don't know why it's counted as a blunder, but it's fairly ineffectual. The king can easily move out of check. Okay. And that's a blunder because, bam. Yeah, that one, I didn't have to look into the lines to explain why. When we threatened the queen and it moved over, it stayed on this diagonal pointing at this knight. But the knight was protected, right? When we set check, we're no longer protecting the knight. So now, top move, get the knight out of danger. You can bring it back here. You can even put it over there, offering a trade. Heck, you can even put it down here, according to these ideas. But instead, leaving it completely unguarded, blunders a full piece, and now the opponent has the advantage. So, but again, that one was one huge obvious blunder. You just hung a piece. But the rest of these appear to be positional blunders. Each slight move gives away positional advantage. Let's look at this blunder now. Computer counted that as a blunder. But they went from a 6.5 point advantage to a 2.5 point advantage. So they still have the advantage. So they got another blunder on their tally, but it didn't give you the advantage as my subscriber. So that's another reason why the opponent can have more blunders than you and still win, because this blunder did not take away their advantage. So again, careful positional moves, each player making sure pieces are guarded, in some cases double guarded. But remember, this bishop, it's not even in the game because of this pawn wall. Okay, threatening the queen. The queen moves out of the way. I assume this is preparing some sort of pawn push here. Now, black still has the advantage here, but now they have a huge advantage. Sorry, what did I do? This, I think, was the biggest advantage that black had in the game. And the reason? Right there. As you can see. But if black does not see that or take that piece, they don't get that huge advantage. Okay? So white was probably thinking, hey, I'll have a discovered check here in a second. That was, I mean, that's clearly the idea of this move, is that next time we want to move this pawn, which will threaten the knight can't escape because that'll be check. However, you've abandoned defense of this rook. So this is check. You get a free rook with check, and then can just go back. Actually, what would white even do in that situation? You have to come out. Oh my goodness. Yeah, and then white loses this pawn. Yeah, it gets pretty nasty at that point. So, but black just saw this pin and got out of it. So black moves out of the pin. Now they don't have that huge advantage because they didn't take this. Then my subscriber saw that rook's not guarded, so they moved it. But black still has a slight advantage. Okay, bigger advantage. Again, looks like trying to pin a piece here. Not sure exactly what the plan was. Black gives back some of the advantage. Okay, now white is trying to free this bishop. That's what that pawn move was for. Okay, now it's even. That blunder was big. Okay, got the bishop free finally. Now we're making what appear to be careful positional moves again. This is a pretty powerful pawn wall. Okay, let's see. Perhaps hoping that white will hang another rook because they missed the first one. Now, okay, white is marching in, trying to advance this pawn chain. Now white has a huge advantage, but they only get that 6-point advantage if they play this. If they do anything else, they don't have a 6-point advantage. So even though this is a blunder, it's only a blunder if this happens. And it didn't happen. So now it's about an even game again. Wait, what? That's fairly easily defended. Okay. That's only a white advantage if you capture the rook. And yes, that hangs a rook, but you got one for one. But so they did this. Now there's a check. There's this. Now it's about an even game again. So let's go ahead and finish up again and see where it finally lost the advantage. Okay, there is a small blunder here, but that's a very small blunder because we went from +1. No, sorry, that's not the blunder. Here's the blunder. Okay, this gives white the advantage, but only if white does one of two things. Only if white says check here do they get the 2-point advantage. And this would give a 1-point advantage. Capturing here would give a bare minimum advantage. But instead we captured this way, which now white has lost the advantage. But now it's even again. No? Computer's having trouble making up its mind whether that's even. It's even if we block with the queen. But we don't. So now white never gets the advantage again. And there are some trades here, but now white's down a full piece. I assume white did the queen trade either out of desperation or hoping to somehow get some of these pawns down. The king comes toward the pawns. This looks like a deflection tactic, but this pawn can't go anywhere because of the knight. And so at this point, it's relatively hopeless. There is not much that white can do. Oh, it said to go ahead and promote here. Not sure why. Yeah, all of the top moves are telling white to promote, but you know it's just going to be captured. So I assume you want to promote and lose that in the hopes of getting this down here. Whoops. Trying to come down here and get some of these pawns. But anyway, so it's over now. Hopefully I answered a couple of the questions. On some of the blunders and mistakes, you just have to look at the evaluation bar, or the 3 plans listed up here. So when it says there's a negative or a 2.9% advantage for black, look and see. Like, it's only an advantage if you do this. And then feel free to follow the line out. I hope that helps. And good luck. Better luck next time.